Her name was struck from every temple wall. Her face was chiseled from every stone statue, leaving a blank, haunting void where a queen once reigned. This was not just murder. It was an act of damnation, an attempt to erase a soul from existence itself. A punishment reserved for those who had committed the ultimate sin against the gods and the throne. In the sands of Egypt, where memory was etched into stone to last for eternity, her story was meant to be forgotten, to dissolve into the silent, sun-baked dust. Yet, some memories are too powerful to be erased. They fester in the darkness, waiting for the moment to be unearthed, and when they surface, they bring a curse along with them. This is the story of the queen who was buried alive. Egypt's forgotten curse. It was an age of golden splendor and divine right, when the Nile was a living god, and the pharaoh was its earthly incarnation. The kingdom of Egypt was a beacon in a dark world, its power absolute, its traditions unbreakable, its laws as immutable as the stars in the desert sky. To defy the pharaoh was to defy the gods themselves, an act of cosmic rebellion that threatened the very balance of the sacred order of the universe. In this rigid world, every person had their place, from the lowest slave to the highest priest. But for a queen, the rules were even stricter. She was not just a wife. She was a divine consort, a vessel of royal blood whose purity was paramount to the stability of the entire kingdom. Her duty was to the throne. Her body was a symbol of the nation, and her heart belonged not to herself, but to Egypt. She was a queen whose beauty was said to rival the lotus flower at dawn. Her wisdom as deep as the hidden currents of the Nile. For a time, she was revered. A jewel in the pharaoh's court, a figure of grace and power whose name was whispered with adoration in the sprawling markets of Thebes. But behind the coal-lined eyes of this divine consort, a human heart beat with a dangerous, untamable rhythm. She was a woman of fire and passion, trapped in a gilded cage of ceremony and expectation. She walked the hallowed halls of the palace, draped in linen and gold. Yet her spirit yearned for a freedom that was utterly denied to her. Her ambition was not for power, but for a love that the gods and her king had forbidden. It was this simple, human desire that would set her on a collision course with destiny, transforming her from a cherished queen into a condemned traitor. Her crime was not one of political intrigue or a lust for power. It was a sin of the heart, an act of forbidden love that shattered the sacred laws of the kingdom. She dared to defy the pharaoh by choosing a lover far beneath her stationer, captain of the guard. A soldier, a mere mortal man whose blood was not divine. In the rigid hierarchy of ancient Egypt, this was an unforgivable transgression, a betrayal worse than treason. It was seen as a stain upon the royal lineage, a polluting act that defiled the purity of the throne and insulted the gods who had ordained it. The love letters, exchanged in secret and written on papyrus scrolls, became her death warrant. The whispered promises under the moonlight became the evidence of her rebellion. Her love, which she saw as a private, sacred flame, was deemed a public defilement of everything Egypt held holy. For this, there could be no mercy. The pharaoh's wrath was as swift and merciless as a desert sandstorm. But a public execution was deemed too quick, too honorable for a queen who had brought such shame upon the throne. Her punishment had to be more profound, a terrifying spectacle of slow, creeping death designed to serve as an eternal warning. She was sentenced to be sealed alive inside her own burial chamber, a living tomb. The sentence was absolute. She would be entombed not with the funerary rites of a queen, but with the instruments of her own agonizing demise. Instead of sacred oils and incantations to guide her to the afterlife, her tomb was filled with lamps that would burn the air to nothing. and vessels of poison incense that would slowly, tortuously suffocate the very life from her lungs. She was to be entombed in darkness, a queen denied both life and a peaceful death, her soul trapped between worlds. The construction of her tomb was shrouded in a chilling and impenetrable secrecy. The workers who carved the chamber deep into the rock of the Valley of the Queens were sworn to silence, their hands building a prison for a living soul. But even their loyalty could not save them. As the final stone was being prepared, a strange and sudden sickness swept through their camp. One by one, the masons, the artists, and the laborers who knew the tomb's location and its cursed purpose vanished. Some whispered they were quietly executed to protect the secret, while others believed they were the first victims of the Queen's nascent curse, their lives claimed by the vengeful spirits they were helping to imprison. By the time the tomb was ready, the only ones who knew its exact location were the high priests who would perform the final, terrible ritual. Silence fell over the valley, a heavy, suffocating dread that mirrored the fate of the Queen. For centuries, her tomb remained lost, a forgotten wound in the sacred valley, its story fading into myth. Then, in the age of discovery, when European excavators descended upon Egypt with shovels and dynamite, the seal was broken. Led by the whispers of local legend, a team of archaeologists finally uncovered the entrance to the forgotten tomb. As they cleared the rubble and breached the stone door, a gust of stale, cloying air rushed out, carrying with it a scent of ancient decay and something more, a palpable malevolence. The moment the curse was awakened, within weeks, the lead excavator was struck down by a fever that baffled doctors. Another fell from a scaffold in a freak accident. One by one, every person who had entered the tomb's antechamber succumbed to inexplicable sickness, madness, or sudden, violent death. The tomb had been opened, and the Queen's vengeance, patient and cold, had finally been unleashed upon the world of the living. Inside the tomb, amidst the scattered remnants of funerary goods and the faint, acrid smell of ancient incense, a discovery was made that was more chilling than any curse. On the limestone wall, hidden in the deepest, darkest corner of the burial chamber, were a series of faint, desperate scratches. They were not the elegant hieroglyphs of a royal scribe, but the crude, frantic carvings of someone fighting against encroaching darkness and madness. Newly deciphered, these marks suggest the Queen did not die quickly. She may have survived for days, perhaps even weeks, in the suffocating blackness. In her final, agonizing moments, with her fingernails torn and bloody, she scratched her final words into the stone, not a plea for mercy, but a testament of her rage and a promise of eternal retribution. She was documenting her own slow death, ensuring her story would be told. He did not scream as the final stone sealed his fate. He only pressed his face against the cold, unyielding rock, his last breath a defiant whisper against the eternal silence. The legend of the Queen's curse became a part of the Valley of the Queens itself. Locals and tomb guards began to speak of a whispering sound that would drift through the canyons on moonless nights, a mournful, ethereal voice carried on the wind. They say it is the spirit of the entombed Queen, her bar forever trapped, unable to find peace in the afterlife. The whisper is said to form words, a chilling refrain that echoes the final promise scratched into her prison wall. It is a message to all who disturb her resting place. A declaration from a queen who was silenced in life but found her voice in death. The whisper says, "You buried me in silence, but I will speak in death." Her story, once erased from the stone temples of the living, is now forever etched into the haunted winds of the necropolis, a curse that time itself cannot forget.